Do you know of any nations where the Prime Minister arrives to work on a bicycle? Everyone rides a bicycle in this country, from a 3-year-old to a 93-year-old. Yes, we're referring to the Netherlands, a country with the most cyclists but the safest. How did their cycling infrastructure get so good? Welcome back to our channel. If you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, please do subscribe. If you like this video, please press the thumbs up button and also click the bell icon. Today in this video, we will discuss how the Dutch bike lane saves lives. One of the greatest delights of Dutch life is riding a two-wheeler across this amazingly pancake-flat, picturesque landscapes that last every dike, canal, river, and coastline shore. Biking through the Netherlands studying a countryside is one of the most remarkable ways to appreciate it. After all, the renownedly flat nation has 35,000 kilometers of bicycle lanes, or fietspadden, which are extremely popular with tourists and residents. Therefore, if you need fresh air, consider getting on your bike and exploring some of the nation's most stunning landscapes. Anyone who has ever tried to make their way through the center of Amsterdam in a car knows it. The city is owned by cyclists. They hurry in swarms through the streets unbothered by traffic rules, taking precedence whenever they want, rendering motorists powerless by their sheer numbers. The Dutch started this fixation on moving away from a car-centric approach and towards safer and more livable cities in the 1970s. Most of us, including some Dutch residents, think that the excellent cycling infrastructure, which includes a vast network of interconnected cycle lanes, has always been. Although cycling in the Netherlands gained popularity a little later than in the United States and Britain, which saw cycling booms in the 1880s, the Dutch were already constructing roads specifically for cyclists by the 1890s. Before World War II, there were cycling lanes in the country cities, but they were far more constrained, uneven, and disjointed. There was a time in the 1950s and 1960s when bicycles faced a severe threat of being driven out of Dutch cities due to the rising number of cars overcrowding the roads. Things were about to change in 1971. The Stop the Kindermoord protest campaign was started by Margie van Putten, Stop the Child Murder. The success of this initiative, combined with other events like the 1973-74 oil shortages and the release of the Crow Design Manual for Bicycle Traffic, led to a change in government policy. The bicycle was essential to make streets safer and towns and cities more habitable. The country has started to restrict the use of motor vehicles in urban areas and shift its focus on expansion towards other modes of transportation. In Amsterdam, bicycles are the preferred method of transportation, and significant effort has been made to accommodate them. The city has a sophisticated network of cycle paths and lanes that are so safe and comfortable that even young children and the elderly choose to go by bicycle. Of course, there are cycle paths throughout all Dutch cities. Amsterdam is just one of them. There's a continuous network of bike lanes that are well lit, well maintained, and signed, with cycle path intersections that frequently give cyclists the right of way. Let's now explore how the Dutch infrastructure differs from other nations in making the experience safe for cyclists. Numerous roads have one or two separate cycleways or clearly defined cycle lanes next to them. Cycling on the main roadway is prohibited on streets with nearby bike lanes or cycle tracks, which must be used. A total of 35,000 kilometers of cycle tracks, or roughly 25% of the country's 140,000 kilometer of roads, have been separated from vehicle traffic. Bicycles and motor cars can coexist on some streets and other roads, but they're typically low-speed roads. These bike lanes, excellent surface quality and generally direct, mal-twists allow for cycling at good speeds over long distances. Pedal bikes may or may not be permitted through tunnels and over bridges. If so, there is typically a separate facility. For instance, pedestrians, bikers, and motorcycle riders cannot enter the Western Scheldt Tunnel. They must either take the bus through the tunnel or board the ship at a different point. Unlike the majority of bus services in the Netherlands, 3 services that cross this tunnel carry bicycles and mopeds. There's a fee for the service and a reservation is recommended. Larger highways are equipped with parallel bike lanes that are physically separated from the road, such as by a verge, hedge, or parking lane, when there is adequate room for them. These bike lanes are typically isolated from a nearby walkway. When protected bike lanes are present, riders generally are required to use them. Mopeds and similar vehicles are permitted and must be used when their top speed is 25 km per hour and they have a blue license plate. Mopeds are only allowed to utilize the cycle pathways with the maximum speed is 45 km per hour, yellow license plate, mainly outside the built-up area. On bike paths, vehicles are not permitted, and to enforce this rule, barriers are frequently used to prevent cars from entering physically. A single-direction bike route is typically too narrow for automobiles to pass on. Bi-directional bike lanes on one side of the street are typical in cities and rural areas. They're separated into 2 lanes, much like highways by a dashed line. The number of times cyclists must cross the road is decreased when there are bi-directional cycle paths on both sides of the road. Although the color of a bike lane or path's pavement might vary, red is the color that's typically used to designate them in the Netherlands. Red asphalt or brickwork visibly separates cycle routes from car lanes and footpaths. Some older cycling pathways are constructed of square tiles often used for sidewalks, and standard black asphalt is also frequently used. There are two types of cycle lanes in the Netherlands, even though the law only mentions one. If the cycle lane is marked with a dashed or broken line that divides it from the main roadway, it signifies that drivers may utilize the cycle lanes in an emergency. This permits them to pass other road users or to carefully drive in the cycling lanes to escape oncoming traffic, for example. Motorists may only drive in the cycle lanes when it's safe to do so without endangering people cycling. Space drivers may also cross the cycle lanes with broken lines to get to parking. On some streets, even when there's very little room for parking, car traffic is allowed to utilize the central rest area even when the cycling lanes are at the recommended width. That is made feasible because motor vehicles are permitted to go on cycle lanes with broken lines. When the cycle lane is separated from the motor travel lanes by continuous solid line, driving on the cycleway with a motor vehicle is prohibited. Only cycle lanes marked with bicycle symbols are considered cycle lanes legally. In the built-up area, the symbols must be spaced out by 50 to 100 meters and 500 to 750 meters outside the built-up area. Additionally, they must be repeated after each side street. However, the Dutch guidelines are merely suggestions. Road management is always free to choose a different cycle lane width. When a sidewalk is present, pedestrians use it. Otherwise, they use the same part of the road as cyclists, on the cycleway or lane if one is there. Otherwise, on the road, but in the latter case, pedestrians preferably walk on the left while cyclists go on the right. Roads and tunnels that are open to cycling are also open to pedestrians. Have you heard about Fietsstraat? Fietsstraat, which means cycle street, is a road where cars and other motorized vehicles are only permitted as guests, and bicycles are regarded as the major and preferred mode of transportation. Fietsstraat comes in 4 different varieties, but they're all obliged to have a speed limit of 30 km per hour or less and are typically painted in the same red asphalt as bike routes. Most Fietsstraat streets are found in residential neighborhoods where there are already roads with less traffic. A Fietsstraat was once a route with little traffic that was easily changed most of the time. They're a crucial piece of infrastructure that makes cycling safer in Dutch towns and cities. In order to avoid congested highways and provide bicycles with straight routes into and through towns, they can also be used for route separation. Another interesting fact about the Dutch is that they don't usually wear helmets. The Netherlands has the lowest rate of cycling-related fatalities and injuries worldwide, despite nearly minimal helmet use and high bicycle usage. The Dutch believe they don't require bicycle helmets because they have established a safe cycling environment and that cycling is not intrinsically dangerous. The Dutch way of bike lane design has contributed to reducing accidents. Vehicles traveling at different speeds frequently collide on cycle paths, especially in Amsterdam, where lanes are frequently limited due to the city's architecture. Since motorized scooters were prohibited from using bike lanes in the city 3 years ago, the number of traffic incidents involving cyclists has decreased in Amsterdam more quickly than everywhere else. Isn't it amazing to see how well-built Dutch cities are? Do you think it's good? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section below. Don't forget to subscribe and like this video.